Welcome back to Stop Doing Stupid Stuff, the podcast where we explore the intersection of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and what happens when people get it spectacularly wrong. In today's episode, entitled AI Hallucinations in the Courtroom, co-hosts Tim Keefe from Transform CX and Andreas Wieman dive into a cautionary tale that's making waves in courtrooms across America. This week, we're unpacking Andrew Lee's eye-opening article from the National Law Review about attorneys who are using AI tools to generate legal filings only to discover their supposedly rock-solid case citations are completely fabricated. We're talking about lawyers getting sanctioned, clients getting blindsided, and judges who are not having any of it. If you've ever wondered what happens when professional responsibility meets artificial intelligence without proper oversight, you're about to find out. So buckle up. This episode might just save your career, your reputation, or at the very least, give you some serious food for thought about how we should really be using these powerful new tools. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody. This is Tim Keefe with Transform CX and my co-conspirator and co-interviewer and a lot of things anyway, Andreas Wieman. And here we are again talking about an SDSS and Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. So Andreas, we're a horrible introduction, but anyway, what's our topic for the day?
The topic is on how to pronounce my name correctly when you're opening, apparently. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't worry. I even call myself the incorrect name every once in a while. No, it's another exciting, I think, topic of how do you help say hi to AI as our tagline, using human intelligence with artificial intelligence and the force multiplier that's introduced with that. And we like highlighting both sides, the advantageous side, the beneficial side, but also being very cognizant of how people are, what's the name of our podcast? Stop Doing Stupid Stuff, how they continue to do stupid stuff. So if you know of anybody that's going to fit into the category we're talking about, feel free to shoot them this podcast link so they can listen to it and tell them to knock it off, stop doing stupid stuff. But there's a article in the National Law Review that Andrew Lee wrote, who's also a partner that kind of oversees a lot of white collar defense team, corporate compliance teams. And I think he nails it with his article where he's finding, information. We'll talk about it. I don't want to say the whole thing right up front because we'll talk about it through the podcast. But lawyers and attorneys that are using AI and using it sloppily, and it's hallucinating and creating fake precedents, fake sightings, and they're just running with it in open court that is resulting in pretty disastrous outcomes for not only their clients, but themselves.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it, Tim?
And I think it was what triggered all of this, right? It was a couple of YouTube videos that were pretty cringeworthy, to see an open court hearing where a judge is calling out an attorney for hallucinations in their filings. And you're like, and you're just like, my concern is, and we talk about this on occasion, that the challenge of the tool, any tool, is there's when applied correctly, it can do amazing things. But when applied incorrectly, it can be pretty dangerous. I mean, anybody who's ever used a power tool can tell you that if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up with fewer fingers than when you started off with. But it's this idea of in a professional setting where whether you're an attorney, a CPA, a doctor, where you're professional and you're a licensed professional, and here in a courtroom, of course, you have an obligation not only to your client but to the court. And the idea that they would come and using this tool say, okay, I've submitted a filing, which is probably great and probably a good way to start, but they haven't reviewed it. And then as soon as the filing lands, both the court attorney and the plaintiff, in this particular case, the defendant's attorney, immediately started looking at the case citations and they couldn't find them. And, oh, that's a problem. And it's kind of like the first one, well, maybe that's a mistake. The second one, that's a pattern. And, so you sit there and you kind of go, wow. And now here's an attorney that at the end of the video, which then led to us looking, finding the article by Andrew Lee here, you have a judge that's not only going to say, you don't get a redo in these types of situations. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you made a mistake. You submitted an incorrect document. Can you just go redo it again? that's not the way it happens, right? And, and in the cases like this, there can be court cost for the other party that you came to court and filed an incorrect filing. There can be sanctions,
Well,
penalties.
I would say like the whole situation, it is literally the equivalent of you just making up a bunch of stuff and throwing it in a filing. It's seriously no different
Yes,
than you doing that. And then what is the implications? Like everybody will try to minimize and deflect and say, "Oh, it's the AI, it's the A." No, it's the person. It's the person. Now, they proceeded with the outcome from the AI. God forbid they take, I don't know, 10 seconds to say, in that same prompt, right? Say, hey, did you make any of this stuff up? And can you cite your sources on clickable links that I can take to validate it? It's going to take me 5 minutes out of my day, which means I'm going to be, late for my latte date here. But let me go ahead and check it just to make sure I don't get sanctioned and disbarred.
well, and and these are kind of like the worst case scenarios. So I think about medical. Oh my God, the opportunity or the risk on some of the medical side where people might, attempt to do a diagnosis just using a Gen AI tool without introducing the human factor in between to really make sure that it's fully
Yeah,
vetted. Because but then, there was another article recently, and I won't name the very large consulting company, very famous large consulting company, that's finding now that a lot of what they traditionally done at this, for strategic type of consulting, there's not a demand for it anymore. Or people are just saying, I can get that same level of quality by going to a Gen AI tool
yeah.
online.
Well, you know what? I think that is a cause and effect consequence of when your entire business model is giving someone a plan that they have to go execute on and live with the results on. I'm
Yeah,
whispering like we're talking in person or something, but I kind of don't feel so sorry for them. That's gonna make them go through a natural business adjustment and modernization of people really need solutions right now and help
right,
implementing them and executing
right.
on them. And
Well,
that's where I think Gen AI can help if you use it as a tool. Like the situation you just described, the example, I think spot on. I look at it like quality control. You would
yep.
never, in any case in history where technological advancement has pursued, they've never just said, "Oh, yep, let's just put this on the assembly line in a Toyota factory that does cars that's all automated. We don't need anybody to look at it. Let's go, have more latte breaks." I don't know why I'm using that as an example, but I continue to use it.
Well, but that way you don't get the door plugs popping out of airplanes at 15,000 feet in the air. Oh, with passengers on board while you're at it.
Yeah.
A little bit of a quality control problem there. And so it does point back to maybe it's as simple as that. Are people just being lazy? Using this tool, which is, again, we keep coming back to it. It's a great tool. When you do the prompts correctly and you learn to understand how to do the prompts so you get consistent, accurate answers of what you want, then that's good. But you still need to take the extra time to put I mean,
Right.
just like anybody, pride of work, pride of workmanship. And when you get lazy and sloppy,
Well,
it's one of those things that comes out. Yeah.
here's like one thing that, and I think this, well, let me know what you think about it, but I think what you just said, if you think about all of the circumstances that, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in right now, everybody is facing, I think, pressures and challenges. And to me, in my head, it's just a math equation that's not interesting to most people. So I'm going to try to do my best to give a more relatable example. There's a lot of things people are dealing with right now at all faucets, whether you're mid management, whether you're a senior level executive. I feel really bad for the HR leaders right now, which is why we're so keen on partnering with HR leaders to help make sense of the world and what they can do quickly, right? Everybody's facing a lot. And with that, if you go look at the Gallup surveys that show where engagement levels are at, and you look at the subcategories, not just engagement, but you look at loneliness and sadness and thriving, all of them are directionally heading downward. Doesn't matter what country you look in, by the way. You can look at it, and we're, largely globally looking at this audience anyways, but every single country is on a downward trend for the most part. So if you mix the human element, the human emotion with it, and then you have these tools that are also being marketed as, solving world hunger, which everybody listening probably knows it's not, definitely not that. They give you fake citations in some cases here. But people start getting in desperate situations. And so where they would have said, no, we can't do that. I've got to validate this. I've got to do that. They're kind of their decision-making criteria is in a different headspace, if that makes sense. And so they're more pressured, I think, internally to deliver. And so what do? They jump to something like Gen AI and they say, oh, I can get five, client cases cited and ready to go and packaged, and it looks really, really polished. I'll file them and I'm going to look good to my boss. I'm going to look good to my senior partner, whoever the case may be, right? And so I think all of that needs to be balanced and taken into consideration. And you got to have a level of discipline if you're the one doing it, saying, no, I'm not going to, I want to do better work. And there's a way to be augmented with AI, which is what our podcasts talk about over the, I don't know, Tim, at least past 2 years, if not longer, of using it in a very practical way. It doesn't do the work for you. Like I think some of these folks in
Yeah.
Andrew's article were quoting, but it's like balancing all of that out and figuring out little by little. Your analogy, I think, is great with the sushi and the knife. Like, I can't even repeat it. I'm going to throw it over to you in a second to do that. But I think it's taking your time and perfecting that craft. And once it's built up, you're going to be able to be highly productive, highly accurate, and then you can show others and be a force multiplier.
No, I completely agree. And, and as much as I think the attorney thing is such a cringy situation because, the attorneys have a unique responsibility for accuracy, both to their clients and to the court. And so there's an honesty thing there, to your point, of saying, hey, at what point do you draw the line of your responsibility for this? When are you signing off that you did the work or an AI did the work? Right. But at the end of the day, you're still the attorney of record, or you're the medical practitioner, or you're going to be the CPA who's making a tax recommendation to a client based on what? And you can see it happening. People will say, "Oh, I can handle 50 clients instead of 5 clients in the same amount of time." And you're like, "Well, maybe, but you've still got to your point, you still have a workmanship, a quality control. And at the end of the day, you're signing off on this thing with the responsibility that comes with it and the
Exactly.
risk of legal sanctions in some cases by not doing it. You could almost see the litigations that's going to come down the road where people are going, oh, I did a tax planning recommendation for this guy because, it was easy. I just had the AI do it for me. I put my name on it, send it off. And then that something happens to that person financially and they come back and sue you for malpractice. And it's going to be, what are you going to do? Blame the AI? Well, no, you
Nope.
signed off on it.
Exactly.
Your head is on the chopping block. But
Agreed.
and I think that this is kind of, and people will say, oh, AI is going to get more and more accurate, but that is true, and we see that. And agentic AI is kind of the next step, and you have an AI checking on the AI. That's a good step. And again, I think AI is just a really good way to help take creative people, and internally we're having this really exciting thing that you and I have been working with a bunch of artists where a year and a half ago were extremely worried how AI was going to eliminate their ability to be creative. And they're actually embracing AI now because it's allowed them to take their skills to a new level.
Yeah.
It's that balancing act, I think. But oh my God, if you go back to our podcast title, stop doing stupid stuff. The
Yep.
idea of going into a courtroom with a document that's been submitted that has hallucinations in it, yeah, that's like the definition of stupid stuff. Um, and like, what were you thinking? And if you do watch, and there's multiple videos out there, and Andrew Lee's article, doesn't allude to, it calls out this situation where this federal judge in Colorado is just slams this attorney
Yeah.
and legitimately. But
Right.
watching this video that we saw the other day, where the judge just eviscerates this guy very calmly. It wasn't like
Right.
she got upset or anything, other than you could tell she was upset. But she
Yeah.
was like, I come from a family of attorneys, and the idea of being effective and working in multiple jurisdictions effectively, blah, blah, blah. And then she points out that this particular attorney operates in 30 states
Yeah.
simultaneously and federal. And she's like, yeah, that just elements of that just,
Don't make sense.
it don't make sense.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes, unbelievable. And then the other attorney goes, yes, and we get a filing response within what would normally take at a minimum a couple of days of work
Hmm.
for, research and blah, 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 they're getting filing responses in minutes,
Right.
which, right away alerts everybody to say that, somebody's just taking the filing, sticking it into a Gen AI tool and saying, what's the response for this? And just hitting copy, paste,
Right.
into an email and
Well,
that or
I,
whatever.
I like your analogy, and I do want to close with one a line from Andrew's article that I think makes all the sense in the world. It's geared towards litigation, right? But I think it actually applies to any industry. At least in my mind, it does, anyways. But the other thing that I want to say is looking at like these fascinating things where you can take AI, don't try to overdo it. And so the example that you said, you could have, now you went from 5 clients to 50 clients. You know what? You could have 49 clients in a row where the AI works and has accurate citations and accurate filings and et cetera, et cetera. All it takes is one to destroy all of that, just one. So think about that with your approach and figuring out how can you use AI ethically, but use it as a force multiplier. And
Right.
that's where I think Andrew's article, and we're going to link to the YouTube video and the article of Andrew's as well. And kudos to Andrew's for it's a very short and concise article. I really like Andrew just from his writing style and his quotations here. But he writes at the very end of it, it's called Lessons for Legal Practice. AI verification isn't optional. It's a professional obligation. While AI tools can enhance efficiency, they require human oversight. The ethical foundations of legal practice remain unchanged. Attorneys must verify information presented to the court regardless of its source. I think that's pretty sound advice of saying everything that we just talked about in the podcast, use it to augment it, but still do everything you normally would do.
Well,
You can just maybe
and
do it a
it,
little bit faster.
Well, and I think the really important thing is this is even though we're specifically talking about legal practice, this needs to be a practice in general.
Exactly.
Because I think in anybody's situation, whether they're a business consultant, a financial advisor, an executive coach, whatever, if you're using these tools and you're putting your name on your output, you need to take the time to validate. And if you don't know how to do the validation, that's a flag, right? Like if you're
Yep.
not you don't understand it enough, but there's people that can help you, or there are other tools that can help you, but take the time to recognize the fact that it's your name on it. And I think
Exactly.
there's a pride of ownership, a pride of professionalism that goes with anything we do, all the way down to, I'm thinking about, I had some contractors in the house doing electrical wiring, and those of us who had to work with contractors, there are good contractors and there are not so good contractors, and the difference is in the little stuff and the professionalism and the fact that they put their name on what they do. So taking that back into AI, if you're going to use AI tool, hell yeah, right, I'm all in on that. Why wouldn't we? And just like I would use Google or whatever, but the next step is it's still your output.
Right.
You own it, your name
Agreed.
on it. Would you sign off on it? And if you wouldn't, that's a red flag as well for
Agreed.
yourself. So, anyway,
Agreed.
thanks everybody for listening. And I think this is really resonates with obviously with us as we think about our whole storyline around stop doing stupid stuff. And again, great tools can accelerate, but they can also just accelerate the creation of stupid stuff.
Hey, what comes with great tools? Great
I,
responsibility.
that's true. That's true. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Subscribe. Please leave comments, and we're happy to keep going until you tell us to stop. All right,
Yep.
thanks, Andreas.
Agreed. Thanks, Tim. Thanks. This is Andreas, Andreas Wieman, right? And Tim signing off. Have a great week.
I'm sorry. It's early. All right, take care, guys.
Bye.